Hi there, thank you so much for clicking the thumbnail and being interested in my work. In this video I share with you my techniques and tips on how I achieve glasses, eyes and skin tones. So be sure to watch it right through till the end, because here and there I'll be slowing things down in real time so you can take a closer look. So let's dive in and take a look. Right, so I'll just put a center point into my board, and I put a center point on my reference image there. So basically it's big shapes to start with, working from that center point and use imaginary angles to get the position of where these shapes are. Just see it as shapes, don't see it as glasses or eyes, and that will keep you more relaxed. So just see it shapes, angles. Work big first and then tighten it up then as you go along. If you notice, I'm using a grip quite a distance away from that point on my pencil. This creates a loose marks and keeps everything relaxed. I'm actually checking as well on the horizontal plane and the vertical plane, comparing what the alignment of each shape, measuring it as well by using your thumb and the tip of the pencil, then comparing one measurement with the other. I'm using the kneadable razor as a tool as well to sculpture and shape the actual area I'm wanting. My approach is to keep the reference image quite small so you can see the whole image, and that way you feel the energy of the subject and you can actually place that in there. Even at this stage you're feeling your way through and connecting to the aura, if you like, of the person, and really just focusing on the feeling of it and the emotion, and work towards that, drawing that rather than all the details exactly what you see. It's just a matter of actually feeling your way through. Here's the basic colours I'm using for the underdrawing, primary colours and a secondary colour green there, and then for the darks I'm using brown, blues, green and red to create shadows. Right, so just starting with the white in the white of the eyes there, but then I decided to ghost the actual outline a little bit. We're using the Faber Pastel Portrait rubber. This underdrawing is to correct the outline, make sure all the proportions are correct and shapes. So basically I'm putting it very lightly in to start with, just to make sure that everything's in the correct position. And once I'm happy with that, I'll go darker then with the brown and blue. So I'm not using black for the underdrawing, I'm just using dark brown and blue. So I'm working on several areas at once really. One minute I'm on the sort of part of the glasses, then I'm into the hair. My procedure is to sort of work on several areas and try and get the feel right, and keep bouncing from one to the other and try and get the balance and the oneness of it, because everything is one, and that's what I'm trying to create, a feeling of energy, a oneness with all aspects, so it becomes just energy you're looking at rather than separate things like glasses, eyes, nose. It all becomes one. So even at this basic stage I'm finding that sort of connection and just dissolving into the energy. So the more you send an open heart to the reference image, the more the energy will shine out at you, and then you can sort of connect to that and just let that flow through you. I like to do the eyes together at the same time. I'm using a cold blue, and I also use a cold blue and orange in the white of the eye. It makes really nice greys. And again continue with that brown, so just getting a basic sort of feel of the whole reference image and just playing really. This is a great time really to enjoy your drawing and being loose with it, so it learns you to be loose and not so tight and worried about details. The more you can let go of the mind and open the heart, the more you'll find it's more spontaneous and more free flowing. So it's just a matter of practice and connection. Once you get the connection, it's a real joy to paint and draw. It just all flows, and it's all fun, it's all enjoyment, and there's no stress at all. It's just a matter of just really being in the moment, here and now, and just flow with it. I'm just going through this quite quickly because I want to spend most of the time with real time in the next layer, the rich colour layer, and also there's a certain thing at the end that will be quite interesting for you to see. What it is, it's correcting the actual eyes. As you can see now, they're too big. So I didn't notice this, and I finished the whole portrait. So there's a way of changing things without creating mud, and I'm going to go into lots of details at the end of this video. Now, to desaturate the red, I'm using a dark green or olive green. It creates natural shadows. The darker the shadow, sometimes you have to use a bit of brown with that, and dark green, and maybe a cold red. You have to experiment with different reds, with different greens, to achieve the correct temperature of that shadow. So you have to play about with different temperature of pencils. But as this is just the underdrawing, I'm not too concerned about getting the values and the colours and chroma right. That will be the next stage. Here's a selection of rich colours from Caran d'Ache, like skin tones, and there's the warm red, vermilion and yellow ochre there as well. And the black ones, I'm using the Caran d'Ache 009 and the Carbothello black, along with the pencils I used earlier. What I tend to do is do the darkest darks to start with, and then the lightest light, and then it gives you an idea then of seeing the other values. So if you go to the extreme, then the midtones then sort of are more easier to see. What I'm doing is just playing to see which works best. Now the Carbothello one is not as dark as the Caran d'Ache, but the Carbothello one is easier to apply. So what I did there is put the Carbothello in first, so it's more chalkier, then add the Caran d'Ache on top, which made it a lot easier then. Now I added a little bit of blue in there as well, just to get that depth of black, so always add something to the black. Experiment putting a bit of red in there as well as the blue. It makes a purple colour with the black. It really gives it depth then. So you've got to try different things in the black. Sometimes it's brown that works, you know, so you just got to experiment. Now the midtones of these glasses rims, they tend to be a little bit bluey, purpley colour. So I'm mixing the ultramarine and a cold red to get a nice purple feel to it. Again, you just got to play and see what works. Sometimes it might be a warm blue and a different red, a warm red, that can make it the right sort of purple. So you have to change the temperatures of the pencils to see what works. But in this instance, a cold purple worked. Now I've used a little bit of lemon yellow on the inside of the lenses itself. It's like a beveled edge to it, and that's reflected light. So I put a bit of lemon yellow to create a bit of chroma. Now the reason they are beveled is actually because it's a prescription glass lens, and it's creating the eye to look bigger as well, because it's magnifying the face underneath, and the width of the face is slightly wider, so you have to bear in mind that as well. But it's a case of just being subtle with it. I'm not putting too much detail in at this stage. I mean, the richest colour stage is still a block in. All I'm doing is trying to get the values, something like, and also the chroma, and then all the details will be put in at the end when I know everything's in the right place. What I'm doing is glazing over with primary colours, the red, blue and yellow, to get the correct sort of balance, and then trying a bit of the brown in places as well, just to create greys. It's just a case of playing until you get the right shade. Now to create a really bright highlight, I've used a Rembrandt stick there, then just glaze over the top. If you're enjoying this video, why not subscribe? It's absolutely free, and then you're sure not to miss any of my future videos. Now, study as you're seeing it now is in perspective because it's on the easel, so it's not a full-on view. So the glasses do look slightly not correct, but it is correct when you actually see the finished painting, because the one on the right is slightly bigger than the one on the left, but it looks smaller here, but it is actually bigger when you see it full on. Right, putting black now into the pupils of the eye, and mix a bit of blue in with that as well, just to create that depth I spoke about earlier. Trying different blacks, a bit of brown here. So if you can get away with using brown and blue, it's always best to do that. It create better shadows, but if you have to use black, just add a bit of colour with it. I'm putting the white down first because I want to make the eyes glow. So if I put the white down first, I can glaze colours on the top of it. You see, that's the idea behind that. Add a little bit of burnt sienna in there and lemon yellow as well, creates a goldy colour. Just trying to match what I see, but to create that glow I like to put the white down underneath it so that shines through, you see. I usually use blue and orange for the eyes, but in this instance it needed to be a purple colour, so I'm using ultramarine dark with cold red to create purples. If you're enjoying this video, why not give it a like and share it with your friends? It would mean so much to me, as this would help the channel to grow. Slowing down to real time now so you can see how I'm putting in the eyelashes. Just putting very light strokes on to start with, just to find the placement, and then when you're happy then you can go in with darker eyelashes. It's a case of just one step at a time, really. Like I mentioned earlier, the eyes are slightly too big. I will correct that at the end of this video, so it'll be interesting for you to see how to correct finished detail and not create mud. So I'll go into great detail on how I do that, so stick with it right till the end. Now I'm getting quite conscious of how long this video is again, so I'm going to speed through the skin tones. I will go into depth of how I achieve the skin tones, but I want to save some space at the end so you can see how I alter and correct and move things around after painting's finished. Now the second stage, which is the rich stage, is all about chroma and values. It's still a sort of blocking stage, it's not the detailed stage, that'll come later in the video. But what I'm doing here is actually putting Caran d'Ache colours in there to create the richness underneath, so when I glaze over with the chalkier pencils, that richness shines through the colour and it changes it very subtly. So what I tend to do is put the colour underneath down lighter, so when I glaze it becomes the correct colour then. So it's a case of building up those layers. Now for the shadows I'm using dark green and dark red and also brown. So I'm laying these colours down as a blocking still. As I say, the details will be put in later, but it's just a case of getting that value correct and that richness of the shadow. So you have to swap the reds around. Sometimes you use a warm red, sometimes you use a cold red. Same with the actual green. I'm using yellow ochre in with that as well. And for the hair there I'm using burnt umber, yellow ochre, burnt sienna and brown and ultramarine blue, and I'm highlighting with like a flesh colour tint from Caran d'Ache, which works really well. All that flesh colour tint is yellow ochre and white mixed together, but it's quite rich in vibrancy, so that's why I tend to use that for highlights. So basically it's just getting that sort of, like I say, the value more like, and getting the sort of general balance of things. So I'm working on several areas, but once I'm happy with the blocking of this rich colour stage, then I'll go in then with the detail and subtle everything up. A great combination for skin tone is yellow ochre, warm red and olive green and ultramarine blue. Really great for getting that sort of subtle flesh tint. Just like to take this opportunity to thank all my Patreons for their wonderful support every month. It really means a lot to me. It makes all the difference. If you're interested and considering joining me on Patreon and would like the benefit of longer, slower and more in-depth videos, please check out the link in the description below. Now this portrait study here will be on my Patreon as a step-by-step on how to alter a mistake. So I'm going to show you how I've altered the eyes, but it'll be a step-by-step, real-time audio, real-time video, so you'll see me as I'm doing it explaining how to change things and not create mud. So that I made that as a Patreon video, and also it will still be on as the whole footage around about 4 or 5 hours, and then you can see it close to real time. You can see every pencil I use and every mark I make. So if you want to check that out later, it will be on my Patreon at some point. Slowing it down now to real time so you can see how I'm using these Caran d'Ache pencils, which is a similar colour to what I'm looking for, twisting it to get it onto the actual texture of the pastel mat. So it's a standard board, so it grabs the pastel, so that's why I'm twisting it here, trying to add white to it and that the sort of blues and greeny blues, and then I'll glaze over the top again then to subtle it up. So that's what I'm doing. I'm doing that on both eyes and then just lightly glaze over the top eventually. A little tip: if you want something to really glow and create chrome, but just add a little bit of lemon yellow to it, only a little bit, it makes all the difference. Now to create a really highlight, I tend to use the Rembrandt stick and then glaze over the top then to subtle it up. It's a case of just keep playing. Now on the glass itself there's reflected lines and all sorts of things, so I'm putting the white down first, then just glazing over with the primary colours, the red, blue and yellow, to get a real subtle rainbow sort of colours in there. So it's a case of getting the white down first. Now to create the freckles, I'm putting the red down first, then I'm putting a little bit of olive green on there, and then maybe a little bit of yellow ochre as well, just to subtle it up, and a bit of white. So that's how I'm creating the freckles. So what I'm doing now is going over, spreading my vision to see the whole thing. I'm putting little subtleties here and there, changing the highlights, putting a few details here and there, trying to get a balance for the whole painting. Now, like I mentioned, how to change something, what you've made a mistake, you finish the portrait and you think, oh my god, what I'm going to do, because it can be a bit daunting, because you think, now how am I going to change all those details? Best thing to do, my approach, is to change colours into grey. So whatever colour you've got, what you're faced with, is to actually add the complementary colour to create a grey. So if it's red, add a little bit of green. If it's orange, add a little bit of blue. If it's a green, add red. So what you're doing is changing things to a neutral colour, and then it's easier then to add the colour on top. So all those sort of eyelashes there, I added a little bit of blue because it was brown, and then white, and created a grey, and then just smudged it in with the rest of the colour, and then just keep going over it until it's correct, and then freshen it up then here and there with richer colour. So basically the easiest thing to do is to change any colour into a grey colour, then you can add anything else on top then. So basically that's what it is in a nutshell. But if you want to see that video on Patreon, it's going to be about an hour and a half to 2 hours where it took me to actually change this, and it's step by step, real-time audio, real-time video. So if you want a really in-depth look at how to change things, please check that video out in my Patreon. I noticed other subtleties that needed to be done as well, so what I've done is actually gone through everywhere, just altering here and there, looking in the mirror, just making sure everything's correct. But some things like this rim of the glasses need to be sharper, so I didn't see that before. So sometimes it's a good idea to have a break from it, even a day, then look at it next day, and you're surprising what you see, what you've missed before. And that's what happened. I left it and then I come back to it and I thought, oh no, that's not right, and then I had to change it. So this is how it looked in the end, when you can see it full on and not in perspective on the easel. So you can see that the glasses are very similar in size. In fact, the one on the right is slightly bigger because of perspective. But yeah, very interesting study, especially when you've got prescription glasses where the eyes are bigger than you would see normally on a portrait. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you're interested in seeing any more of my videos, here's some links that you might be interested. Take care. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.